Section 3, Topic 6, Part 2. A genuine search reveals genuine truth. Well, here we are. I would say by now that I have probably alienated just about everyone that I'm going to. So for those of you who are left, who have determined to read this book in its entirety, as I asked everyone to do in the beginning, who have shown perseverance and open-mindedness, and who have proved by the fact that they are still reading, or listening, that they are genuinely seeking the truth about themselves and their purpose for being. I applaud you for your determination and congratulate you on your sincerity. I want to begin this discourse right, because what I am about to tell you is the truth that you are seeking, the truth that you need to have in order to understand our universe and your place in it. It is at this juncture that you must be determined in your own mind that you will consider my words without bias or prejudice of any kind. You have to have an open mind, regardless of the fact that many of you already have some firmly held preconceived notions. Otherwise, all that you have read or heard up until now will have just been a waste of your time, and I do not believe that that is what you want. So please listen to the following carefully and earnestly weigh my words with all due deliberation. My knowledge of the truth is taken from God's Word. I realize that this very first sentence will upset some of you because the Bible and anyone who believes its contents and concepts are pretty much either considered to be crazy or to be pitied as someone who cannot deal with reality, so they have to believe in fairy tales, or that they are just hypocrites who exhibit no outward evidence of believing anything that they profess to believe in the way of holiness, moral character, or Christian values. Unfortunately, on the latter point, there is a great deal of truth to their perception. But if you genuinely want an answer to your questions, you have to put aside your initial negative reaction and follow along with this process with an unprejudiced attitude as I lead you into the real truth of all truths. You have to empty your mind of everything that you believe to be true. You have to approach this process without any preconceived notions whatsoever. You have to act as if you have never even heard of the Bible or God, or that you have witnessed any hypocrisy associated with such beliefs. You must approach this process as if these concepts are brand new to you. This is the only way that you can judge for yourself if what God's Word says is valid or not. Do not permit the hypocrisy of others to rob you of the truth that you are seeking. Make up your own mind. Trust your own judgment. Because if you can't manage to get past any pre-existing impressions that you may have that are based on our so-called modern society's unreserved rejection and even mocking of God, or because of the hypocritical actions of so many so-called Christians, then your search is as good as dead. In effect, you will have allowed others to decide for you what you should or should not consider in your search. You have to believe in your own ability and intelligence in this search, not in what others tell you that you should consider, either by their words or their actions. Ask yourself this: do the people that are telling you to reject the Bible outright have some great truth that they have discovered, and which they are leading their lives in accordance with, without any perceived hypocrisy? All I'm saying is, don't cheat yourself out of exploring every possibility. If in the end you should decide that this isn't the truth that you were looking for, then so be it, but at least you will have made your decision based on your own investigation, and not on the advice or influence of others. If you have achieved this mindset, then we will proceed. I want to begin with an overview of what has been presented to you to this point in the book. The first topic in Section 1 contained my views concerning the nature of the universe itself, specifically the nature of time, space, and matter, and the eternal quality of each. My premise is that if these three realms of universal existence are eternal, and I believe that I have sufficiently established that they are, and we believe that God is the only thing in all of everywhere that is eternal, and that has no beginning and no ending, then of necessity, God and what we refer to as the universe are one and the same. Or at the very least, the universe is the when, where, and what of God, and is as eternal an aspect of God as is his soul and his spirit. My reason for putting this topic in the book was twofold. First, because I wanted you to truly appreciate the fact of God's presence in every aspect and every location of existence. There is no place anywhere that God is not present, because he himself is every place, or every place is God. Secondly, because there are people out there who have been searching for the truth about God and who have succeeded in their search to the degree that they have gotten a handle on the fact that God and our universe are synonymous, at least to the extent that the universe is the realm and the how of God's existence. But while their discovery of this fact is a truth, it is not the whole truth about God. Those people who have discovered this truth about God are the ones who, upon realizing that everything in the physical realm of God is made of the very substance of God, mistakenly then believe that this means that they should worship creation as God, or instead of the Creator, because in their mind creation and the Creator are one and the same. It is completely understandable why they would believe this, but such is not the case. I realize that this point can be very confusing, but you have to realize that while it is true that everything is comprised physically in its entirety of the substance of God, that the physical universe is only the visible aspect of God, or the physical expression of God, and not the whole of God. God must be taken in his entirety, not piecemeal. He is triune in nature. In other words, he consists of three different characteristics or components of existence which constitute the whole or completeness of God. Evidence taken from the scriptures indicates that these three separate elements or aspects of God are in reality three individual persons which comprise the whole of God. They are spoken of as having the fundamental traits which establish personhood: a physical existence, a spiritual existence, and an intellectual existence, which are the same traits associated with man's personhood. These traits include things like self-awareness, the ability to reason and make informed decisions, knowing the difference between right and wrong, feeling emotions, willful conduct, creativeness, and many other spiritual, cerebral, and intellectual types of qualities, as opposed to merely the visible or physical traits of existence. All are required for the completeness of man, and all are required for the completeness of God. Such is the reason why the worshipping of those things which express only the physical existence of God, for example trees, crystals, the earth, the stars and planets, etc., is doing a great injustice and disservice to the full and all-inclusive nature of the universal God. Even as man is more than just the body, which is simply the part of us that is visible, tangible, and recognizable, so is God more than just the physical expression of the universal body, as this is the only aspect of God which we as humans experience visibly and can see and touch. There is so much more to God than just his creation, which is why it is an erroneous assumption on man's part to try to limit the sovereign of the universe to only what we can perceive visibly and physically, and then to give worship, adoration, appreciation, and devotion to that aspect alone. To worship creation is to sell God short. Let's follow along on this idea for a moment. Why would you choose to worship, let's say, so-called Mother Earth as your God? Why wouldn't you choose to worship the highest order of creation, that being man, instead of something that is inert, passive, and lacking in spiritual or intellectual self-awareness in its existence? Common sense alone should tell you that if it was right and proper to worship something that existed, that it should be the epitome of creation that was deserving of such devotion. Man is the highest form of intelligence existing in the known physical universe. So why wouldn't he be the object of your worship? Unfortunately, today there are many who do believe that man is a god unto himself. Self-worship is the standard of our day and age, not the exception. I want you to look deep within yourself, all the way to the innermost sanctum of your being, and seriously ask yourself this question. Am I the beginning and the end of all purpose and reason for my own existence? And if I am, then is this the final truth that I have been seeking, or for that matter, is a tree or a crystal or a planet? Can you seriously say yes to such a question? If you can, then unfortunately the reality is there is no valid hope for you ever finding the truth of your existence. If you can be satisfied with the notion that trees or stars or planets or even you yourself are what's guiding your life, or is worthy of your worship, praise, and devotion, then I will just say good luck with your decision to either choose or to be your own God. Let me know how that's working out for you one of these days. For those of you who cannot answer such a question in the affirmative, let's resume our search by examining another misguided notion which probably makes up the largest portion of today's belief system. Again, let's go back to section 1 under the topic Nature of the Trinity and consider the main premise presented there. The Bible indicates that while there is only one God, that there are also three individual persons. Again, let's go back to section 1 under the topic Nature of the Trinity and consider the main premise presented there. The Bible indicates that while there is only one God, that he is also three individual persons. I will not rehash the entirety of the subject matter here. However, I do wish to reiterate the idea that God is existent in not one but three separate realms, those being physical, spiritual, and intellectual. To this point we have discussed the folly of worshiping only the physical aspect of God. Next, we will look at why the many truth seekers whose self-imposed restrictive worship of only the intellectual facet of existence to the exclusion of all else, believe themselves to have found the truth as to their purpose in life and reason for existence. We have already touched briefly on these individuals, as they are the ones who worship themselves and believe that they are the final authority in the universe. These are most often referred to in today's terms as secular humanists. One tenet of their belief is that man, as he exists today, began as some primordial sludge billions of years ago and has progressed to being the highest intellect in the universe. This is the modern-day fallacy known as evolution, which the scientific community has now, for all intents and purposes, given up on as being scientifically unlikely and without any credible evidence to support it. However, those who hold tenaciously to their beliefs that man is the final authority must hold on to this myth, because if they admit to even the possibility of creation, then they have to accept that there is of necessity a creator, which would destroy their self-proclaimed self-governed intellectual kingdom, the throne of which they believe themselves to sit upon. They believe that given time, man will be able to cure all of his own ills and failings by means of his superior intellect and self-determination, with a little technology thrown in for good measure. That in time, mankind by his own devices will put an end to wars and crime, provide equitably for the welfare of the entirety of the earth's masses, and do away with any and all intolerance as concerns anyone else's beliefs and values, regardless of their nature or origins. While it is true that man's knowledge and resultant technological advances have grown exponentially, the world's social, economic, and ideological differences continue to divide the family of man proportionately. Social injustices are worse now than ever. The gap between the haves and the have-nots widens with each succeeding generation, not only on an individual basis, but on a national and global scale as well. And the leaders and proponents of the world's leading ideologies are even more convinced than ever that what they believe is the only cure for what ails the current state of mankind. As for the goal of attaining a total and complete cessation of wars, the only substantial differences in recent history in this regard is the fact that man's expanding knowledge and subsequent technologies have now afforded him the opportunity to destroy the entire planet if he so chooses, and the fact that most current wars are based on ethnicity and ideology as opposed to nationality or societal constructs, as is evident in the current and ongoing worldwide war on terror, which is global in its nature and scope and is based on Islam's fundamental belief that they are the only component of the human race which is worthy of life. It should be more than apparent to any thinking individual who will be honest about it that the world is worse off today than it was 100, 200, or several thousand years ago. Not only has mankind not improved his lot in life by his own futile attempts at global reformation, he has made it worse. I believe that this whole school of thought is flawed from the outset, as its premises demand global acceptance and participation, and puts forth the erroneous supposition that mankind in general, and national governments in particular, have a genuine and heartfelt desire to develop a completely just, fair, and equitable world for all of mankind to exist in. Such never has been the case, is not the case today, and with past millennia to look to as a reference point, will never be the case. If mankind is the only savior mankind has to depend on or put its faith in, then humanity is condemned to a most miserable condition and future. The single saddest element which is associated with those who hold to this particular so-called truth is their belief in and acceptance of their conclusion that when they die it is the end of their existence. I personally cannot understand how anyone could be okay with this conviction. In my mind, to once have had self-awareness and then to have that spark of life taken from me is tantamount to being condemned to a lifetime of dread and extreme and continuous mental torment. To be destined to live each day believing that it could be my very last day of existence, for me at least, would be to dwell among the living damned. Is this the belief that you hold? I pray it isn't. The final area of misguided notions held by truth seekers is in the realm of the spirit. While the spiritual aspects of God are probably the clearest characteristics we have to look at in determining God's nature, that is, His holiness and righteousness, it is also the area where truth-seeking individuals can get the most turned around in their thinking. This is because there are so many spiritual truths that people, upon discovering some truth, have a tendency to take those one or two individual elements among many and mistakenly believe that they comprise the whole of the truth. Just as it is improper to worship only one aspect of God, it is also improper to worship only partial truth within each aspect of God. God is a spiritual being, as is man. Just as man's body connects him to the physical universe, so man's spirit connects him to the spiritual universe. While the material universe is visible and tangible, I can assure you that the spiritual universe is every bit as real, and is in fact more real than its physical counterpart. It is in the spiritual realm that the true powers of the universe exist. It is the realm not only of God and the heavenly host, it is also the realm of Satan and his demonic hordes. The most common error made concerning this realm of existence is that of people attempting to spiritualize everything to the exclusion of all else. By now I hope that I have shown you that to focus on only one aspect of existence is to hold to only a partial truth. For how can the whole of the truth be known if the entirety of the universal existence isn't considered in the procedure employed in reaching a conclusion? Let us examine some of the truths held by those whose purpose and God exist exclusively in this realm. Spiritualists follow many different paths in their search for truth and reason for being. Some are followers of voodoo gods and practices, others turn to witchcraft, while still others read palms, tarot cards, tea leaves, the planets and their alignments, or make use of fortune tellers and psychics, usually in a vain attempt to either see or influence the future, or to connect with the dearly departed. Most of these areas of spiritual pursuit are benign, and the only futures they predict are those of the practitioners of these gifts whose future holds the accumulation of the wealth of the gullible and desperate. However, as with all areas of existence, there are truths to be discovered and employed, and therein lies the danger. Those dabbling in the occult aspect of spirituality can and do conjure up spirits. However, these spirits are evil, every one. Though these demons may have the appearance of being whatever or whoever the spiritually attuned practitioners believe they were successful in summoning, they are in reality nothing more than dark spirits of the damned, seeking whom they may destroy. In 2 Corinthians 11:14, we are told that Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Satan and his demons are more than capable of taking on any appearance they choose to in order to deceive and lead people astray. He will make people believe that they are talking to some relative who has passed on, or some spiritual guide who will lead them into all truth. Millions upon millions are being led astray by such notions, unable to understand how their being able to see and converse with a dead relative's spirit could possibly hurt them. The answer is simple. If Satan gives his audience what they want, so long as what they want isn't Jesus, and feels a perceived need for seeking individuals, then he has won the battle. Satan's goal is not simply to badmouth God, it is to steal souls from God. And if he has to be a real sweetheart in order to give you the impression that he can meet your needs and desires instead of God, with all his confining rules and regulations, then he has just as surely stolen your soul as if he had presented himself for who and what he really is, the vile evil chief of the demonic hordes, and by sheer force of power demanded your allegiance. Anything that keeps you contented without your having to put up with the perceived hassle of living like a goody two-shoes, he is willing to do. For him, the ends justify the means, and the most devious aspect of his deceptive approach is that you will never know or believe that the devil has anything to do with it. There are those who worship Satan being fully aware of his true nature. However, I will not discuss them here, as their future and fate, barring a tremendous miracle, is sealed. God help them. This has been only a brief summation of the darker side of spiritualism. Now let us consider the spiritualists who are seeking to discover a deeper meaning to life and the universe around them. These generally fall into two groups: those who believe that everything has a spirit and the spiritual realm is simply the sum total of all spirits, and those who believe that there is a universal spirit, which all of these lesser spirits seek to become attuned to and exist in harmony with. These are those who believe in fate, destiny, karma, reincarnation, and the like. Here once more we come to a partial truth that has some basis in reality, but which in and of itself does not constitute the whole truth. While it is true that all spiritual beings, whether it be man, God, Satan, angels, or demons, all exist in the spiritual realm on some level, and while the idea that there is a universal spirit is, in my estimation, also a truth, it is not appropriate to assume that this realm alone holds the complete and all-inclusive answer to our query, why am I here and what is my purpose? I have tried to bring you through to the logical conclusion that in your search for the truth you must seek all truth in order to get a complete picture. Whether you believe in God or not, you must acknowledge that man exists in all three parts of the realm of existence that I have presented to you, those being the physical, intellectual, and spiritual dominions of all things. The logical conclusion that you must therefore reach, even if only on its most elementary and fundamental level, is that in order for you to gain a knowledge of the whole truth, you must incorporate the entirety of creation, with all of its varied and various facets of existence, into the equation.